The Subanen of Lapuyan here believe they are protected by 7 giants. So there are even accounts that the giants protect them to this day and have protected them during World War II against the Japanese, and even in the 1980s protected them from the MNLF. So the giants are Minanga, the guardian giant of the river's mouth. His whole body vibrates and sparks with blazing fire. And then there is Dagot, the guardian giant of the creek, who is rarely seen and is always naked. There is Mati, the guardian giant of Mount Tumahub, who is made of stone and is the most feared by the Subanon. Then there is Gumampa, guardian giant of the west coast of Lapuyan, who looks like a giant hunter. And Dasay, the guardian giant of Lake Dasay. These last 2 giants are not seen so much, so there's not so much written about them. And then we have Baga, the guardian giant of animals and wild flowers, who has the head of a rooster. And then there is Fingi, the guardian giant of the Imbing clan, who is said to be a descendant of this clan, the Imbing clan. I'll look into the more detailed descriptions of the giants in future videos. The first guardian giant of Lapuyan is Minanga, the guardian giant at the river's mouth. Lapuyan is a small community that is named after the river that passes through it. So as you can imagine, the river is a very important way to access the community. So Minanga is the one who protects the communities from pirates who try to enter the community through the river. He sits on a tiny islet found at the mouth of the river, which has its source from a spring in Mount Tumahub. And this is where the fishermen and Subanon see him. The Balyans of the Subanon, who are the priests, they say he is the biggest of the 7 guardian giants, because when he walks about the mouth of the river, the water reaches up only to his knees, and he frequents the bay so much that barnacles grow around his legs. So Minanga seems to have power over fire, as you can see here in this drawing. His whole body vibrates and sparks with blazing fire. So in one account, during the Spanish times, some pirates who kidnapped Subanon children and sold them to slavery were frightened away by balls of fire that Minanga spat out at them through his huge cave-like mouth. So balls of scorching fire seemed to come down from the sky into the sea as like a continuous flow of rolling molten lava. So fishermen still leave offerings to the giant, and Muslims also leave a part of their fish on certain seasons. This is a way of paying homage to the guardian giant Minanga. The second guardian giant of Lapuyan is Dagot, the guardian giant of the creek. There is a creek that is also named Dagot. Actually, it is named after the giant Dagot. And Dagot protects it. And he is also rarely seen. Dagot is always completely naked. But that's not the reason why they don't see him. Apparently, when the Subanon do see him, he's not ashamed of his nakedness. He's just always bored. I don't know why. I guess being a guardian giant is not very eventful. However, there's an interesting story about Dagot. He is remembered very fondly by the Subanon because he protected them just very recently in 1975. In 1975, some 100 MNLF rebels were repulsed at the creek by only 7 home defense militia. So it was a mystery how these 7 soldiers were able to repel a force of 100. Then, 2 years later, some of the raiders from the MNLF who surrendered explained why they stopped attacking. They said that while they were attacking Lapuyan, suddenly they heard volleys of fire as if hundreds and hundreds of soldiers were at once firing at them from Mount Thumahub, north of the town, which towers over the creek. So they felt mortar and cannon shells falling all over around them. However, there were no soldiers from that location. So according to the four Balyans, the priests, the giant Dagot, who is a guardian of Mount Tumahub, he and another giant, Mati, who also lives on Mount Tumahub, must have made all the noises as if incredible shell explosions and cannonade were hurled at the Moor raiders, and that's what saved the community. The third guardian giant is Mati. Mati is a giant that looks like he is made of stone, and among all the guardian spirits, he is the most feared. This is because when Balyans or the priests perform a special rite called the Buklog, if they do anything wrong, Mati will challenge them. If Mati decides to overpower the Balyans, then all the people and houses in the village will turn to stone. One of these Subanon chanters, Madam Sigbe Mamadod, even remembers a session wherein Mati challenged the Balyans. When Sigbe was 7 years old, a buklog was performed, and since the dato at the time was very rich, he was able to afford the most expensive and powerful balyans to celebrate it. So while the buklog was being performed, the binalay, which is a decoration made from leaves, started to bend and turn hard like stone. The leaves started to break apart, and a shadow loomed over the house of the datu, even though it was just the middle of the day. Then the balyans started to grow weaker and weaker and ended up on the floor. So this is where it gets a little intense. There is a belief that if the giant Mati would overpower the Balyans, the Thimway had to cut off the Balyans' heads. They had to decapitate them in order for the Datu and the village to not turn into stone. Datu Lumok drew his bolo and started to wave it around feverishly. He started to pray to the Diwatas and to ask Mati to stop his vengeance in case that the Balyans had done something wrong in performing the ritual. So Dato Lumok's grief must have reached Mati's heart because then the shadow vanished and the sun came out again. And thankfully, the Dato did not have to decapitate anybody that day. So Mati is also, well, I'm afraid to say this, but apparently it says here he's an ugly giant and he loves to tease the Subanon. He likes to play pranks on the people in Lapuyan. After reading that story, I don't want to say anything bad about Mati. And there was another account wherein he did turn people into stone somewhere in Zamboanga del Sur because he got angry when the buklog was performed wrongly, when they showed no respect and were mouthing bad words during the ritual dance and sacrifice. In this book, out of the 7 guardian giants, there isn't so much info on giants 4 and 5. Gumampa, guardian giant of the west coast of Lapuyan, and Dasay, guardian giant of Lake Dasay. So, Gumampa, the guardian giant, lives in a cave that people don't like to enter because it looks like it might cave in at any time and they are scared that they'll get trapped inside. He looks like a hunter and he guards the west coast of Lapuyan. Dasay lives on a mountain above Lake Okapan, and before, the mountain was called Dasay after the giant. So if you notice a lot of these guardian giants, the place that they guard is actually named after them. So Dasay is not really seen, and not much is known about him except that he guards that mountain and the lake below it. one reason why people don't know much about the giant is because no one is brave enough to actually ask him, ask how he is. So, is it his duty to guard Lake Dasay? Would he allow a traveler to pick fruits from its orchard or catch crabs and fish abounding in the lake? Yes, one can, but always in a subdued voice. Since permission is needed from the giant Dasay, it is assumed, and rightly so, that indeed he is the guardian of the mountain and of Lake Dasay. For more videos on pre-colonial and indigenous Philippine culture, folklore, and mythology, subscribe to my YouTube channel and look for me on TikTok.